Welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz. I'll be your host, and this podcast exists to help you improve your communication skills. Whether you communicate one-on-one, to a team, from a stage, or from behind a screen, we know that when we improve our communication skills as leaders, it exponentially changes everything. It improves our relationships, it improves our leadership skills, and it improves our business skills. So let's get ready to dive into this next episode. Well, how do you fail forward? No one likes to fail, but the reality is, as a leader, we're all going to experience moments in our leadership, in our career, in our professions, where we miss the mark, where we do fail, where a project that we've been planning doesn't go the right way, when we communicate something that comes out the wrong way, when we've put all of our effort into something and it just, we just wish it would have just gone another way. But how can we get to the place as a leader, as someone who values health and authenticity, so we can use that failure for good? What are ways that we can talk about it? How can we share the story of it? How can we inspire other people? Well, you are in, let me just say this, you're in luck for this episode. I'm so excited about our guest. I have been following him on LinkedIn for a long time. We're both Michiganders. I'm more of a Michigander at heart these days because I did move away. He's still there, but he is a Tedx speaker. He is a business owner, entrepreneur. He's a speaker. I mean, he is a LinkedIn influencer. I could go on, and I'll let him share more of a story. But Jacob Brown, I'm so honored that you are on the Speak with People podcast. Welcome.
Jason, I couldn't be so happy to jump on this podcast with you, man. I've been very excited. I've been looking forward to this all weekend, and thank you for the introduction. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I absolutely love it. Well, such an honor. And, truth be told, I stalked you for a while. My mutual friend, I think Eric Brooker, told me about you. He's like, you got to follow Jacob. And I followed you, and you've just helped up my LinkedIn game, my social media presence, casting vision. So I'm just so grateful. And I loved our pre-call. I loved when we kind of got to know each other a little bit. And so let's let our audience get to know you a little bit. Could you share a little bit of your story? What's got you to this place in your life?
Yeah, so most of you know me on LinkedIn. If you follow me, if you followed any of my content as Jacob Brown, the human being, I talk a lot about failing forward, and the emphasis is not on the failure part; it is on the forward part. What do you do when you fail? Failing forward came to me back in 2006 when I was getting ready to go to the NFL, and my aunt asked me a simple question. She says, "Jake, what happens if football doesn't work out?" Couldn't believe she asked me that question. I was 22 years old. I was 6'3", 220. I ran a 4.38. I was cocky. I was arrogant. I was athletic. But I had no idea that a question that she was asking me was going to be a pivotal moment in my life, because only 3 months later, I was cut from the Oakland Raiders. And then I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life, right? And I went to work. I jumped into my industry a few years later, and I skyrocketed up the ladder as a creative director, until I got to a point in my life where I was just unhappy with analytics, launches, pitches, all the things that come with corporate America. And I wanted to give back to those people and people that I had been leading for a long time. So I started sharing quotes and testimonials and stories about this concept called fail forward. I felt like I had risen from the ashes of what I felt like in failure. And a lot has happened over the last 15, 20 years. And I've gotten to a point where I feel like I can give back to people through my experiences, through my failures, through my successes. And that turned into a speaking platform about 7 years ago. And now also a coaching platform. And I'm also going to be releasing my book here in a month or two. So that's a little bit about me. I'm pretty sure we'll dive a little deeper in. But that's essentially how I got here.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even think about the book. I'm so excited. Be absolutely
Awesome.
great.
Yeah, I'm writing a book called A Fail Forward Mindset. It's going to be a short story about where I came from, how I got to where I'm at. And also I'm going to be giving people about 52 weeks of my favorite quotes and synopsis for each one of those. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I can't wait. And the moment that it publishes, we will share it and recommend it to all of our Speak with People community and listeners, and really looking forward to that. So are you a lifelong Michigander?
I am. I was born and raised in Bridgeport. by Saginaw, Michigan. Most people don't know where that is. If I'm going to do the hand, it's going to be right up here.
Yeah.
And yeah, Bridgeport's small town. We got about 6,000 people. I graduated with 150 people, so very small town. And I moved away for a short period of time to go play football. I came back home, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, that's fantastic. What do you
Yeah.
love? What do you love the most about where you live now?
I would say the what I love the most about Michigan is probably spring, summer, and fall. I can't stand the winter. I've never been a snow type person, so I'm hoping within the next 3 to 4 years, once my second son graduates high school, to move somewhere a little warmer. But Michigan is a beautiful state.
Yep.
There is a lot to offer here. There's a lot of different places and areas that you wouldn't even believe were Michigan. So if you haven't had a chance, definitely come visit Michigan. The West Side and the northern Michigan are some of the most beautiful places here in the United States.
Oh, it's just incredible. Absolutely. I think about now how I used to live back to the hand in the very middle of the
Yeah.
state, in the middle of the mitten, where you know well, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, fire up
Yep.
chips. And I think
Fire
about
up.
just those colors. Now that I'm in Tampa, we have, green, light green, and that's about it.
Yeah, Mount Pleasant was a beautiful city. That's where I went to Central Michigan. Went to college there, so I know that area very very well. But yeah, Tampa is a nice place. It's probably my number one or two on my docket.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, that'd be exciting to have you in town. We've got a group of some pretty amazing speakers down here. So you'd be joining if you
Yeah,
guys ever move down here. We got a great little network. I love your creative director past because everything just fell into place. It was like I've been
yeah.
building this puzzle as I've been getting to know you. And even offline, I asked you about some graphics and some of the social media that you do. And knowing the creative director past, I was like, oh, this is where all the creativity comes from. Because I'm
Uh,
telling you, you have a way to inspire that just blows people away. So let's go back to your story a little bit. Where was that setback or that pivotal failure moment? I know you talked about it a little bit in your story, but it's just that moment that played such a significant role that it kind of unleashed your, professional journey as a speaker, influencing thousands of leaders all over the place.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I started off as I went to school as a graphic and web designer. I had no intentions of being a graphic and web designer because as a kid, I'm going to the league, baby. That's the only thing. That's
Yep.
the only decision. There was no plan B, right? And my aunt was the one that asked me, "What is your plan B?" Right? And it ended up being graphic and web design, to which I kind of climbed my way up the ladder as a creative director, and eventually I was leading a design team at General Motors that was leading the design for the infotainment systems, all of the screens in your cars.
Huh.
I was leading the teams that were designing all of the safety for autonomous vehicles, all of the personalization for your car to phone to home, and also for some of the electric EV work. And I just wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy. I was doing a lot of great work. I was making a lot of good money. I was driving brand new cars every 5 months, but
Wow.
it was still leaving me depressed, right? Because at the end of the day, I wanted to encourage, motivate, and empower people to go after their dreams and their goals.
Yep.
That is what filled me on the inside, right? Not making all this money, not being in the newspapers or not having articles written about me. I didn't care about those things. I wanted to help other people do that. And this is when I started to share different types of stories and different types of motivation to help encourage other people. And that kind of was my pivotal moment into speaking.
Wow. Wow, I love that. And just makes so much sense as you look forward with everything that you've done. Okay, you touched
Yeah,
on it just a little bit earlier, but as we think about failing forward,
yeah,
how do you define that? What does it mean in the context of our, leadership and our personal development when we fail
yeah.
forward?
Yeah, it is no question that you will fail if you're trying to do anything
Mm,
remarkable in life. If you're trying
mm,
to attempt anything in life, it could be a relationship, it could be a business, it could be writing a book. There's going to be a moment where you just drop the ball, right?
yep.
Literally and figuratively, right? Coming from a football background, right? There are going to be times where you drop the ball. It's what do you do in the next moment when the next ball is coming your way, when the next project is coming your way, when the next relationship, the next business is coming your way? How do you respond? Do you take that in? Do you take the knowledge? Do you take the experience that you learned even in your failure into the next phase of your life, the next project, the next relationship? Or do you try to start all over and rebuild the wheel from scratch,
Wow.
right? No, you take the experience and the knowledge that you have from the beginning into the next project, phase, relationship, or whatever it might be, and that's how you fail forward. So even in your failure, you can still fail up. A lot of people say fail up or fail forward, right? That's my definition, but
Yeah.
ultimately utilizing all of that to help other people.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I run into leaders all the time who they've just been stuck in a stagnant place because they've
Yeah.
experienced, little failure, little failure, little failure. And now they're
Yep.
at a place where they just can't move forward. Why
Yeah.
should I move forward? Look at all the, past. How do you, I mean, I've read so much of your story. I mean, you have overcome so many things. You've kept moving forward. How do you maintain that positive mindset, that resilience, like in the face
Hmm.
of the adversity? Because that's what has drawn me to you. Your vulnerability about your story, it's just rare among leaders. And so I can't remember who I just read said it, but vulnerability draws people to you. And so it's just one of
Hmm.
the things you do well. So how do you keep that positivity? Because I open up the LinkedIn in the morning and I'm like, all right, like I read some of your posts and I'm like, boom, I'm moving. Let's get this done.
Well, you mentioned a little earlier, there's a lot of leaders that they get stuck in a place because they have little failure after little failure after little failure, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about perspective because every tiny win adds up to grow momentum for bigger wins, correct?
Yes.
So every tiny failure adds more tension. If you think about tension, right, this is why you feel the way that you feel every time you fail, because there's tension growing inside of you. But if you think about this, every time you fail and there's a bit more tension, think about a slingshot. Every time you pull a slingshot backwards, more and more tension is growing in that
Right.
slingshot. But as soon as you let go of that slingshot, what happens? It flies,
Right.
right? Whatever it is in that slingshot flies. And a lot of people, and I talk about fear, right? Fear happens when everyone tries to feel like they're trying to stay in control.
Oof.
And as soon as you let go of control and you just allow life to happen for you, that's when things start to work for you. Most of our failures happen because we are trying not to fail, number
Mm.
one,
Wow.
or we are or we are focused on the last failure that we had, right? So the more tension that we have growing in our slingshot of life,
Yep.
the more we have to remember, hey, just let go. Let go. Don't feel like you have to try to control everything, everyone around you, everything that's happening in your life, because at the end of the day, none of us can actually control everything that happens in our life. I tell a short story about the old Chinese farmer that once lost his horse. Have you heard this story?
No, no.
So there's a story of an old Chinese farmer that once lost his horse, and all the villagers came around. They said, "Oh, that's that bad fortune, isn't it? We're so sorry." And Chinese farmer simply said, "Maybe." The next day, the Chinese farmer's horse returned with 7 wild horses, and all the villagers came around. They said, "That's great fortune, isn't it?" And he says, "Maybe." The next day, the Chinese farmer took out one of the horses to try to tame it. He was thrown off, broke his leg, and all the villagers came around. They said, "That's bad fortune, isn't it?" And the Chinese farmer simply replied, "Maybe." The next day, the Chinese emperor ordered all able bodied men to join the war because they were going to war with a neighboring country. And in that war, many men were killed and many were maimed, but the Chinese farmer's son was saved because his leg was broken and he didn't have to go to war. All the villagers came around once again and they said, "That's great fortune. Your son was saved." To which the Chinese farmer simply replied, "Maybe." In China, there's a saying, and that saying is Sai Wing Shi Ma. Sai Wing Shima means remember the old man that once lost his horse, because the Chinese farmer understood that sometimes good things would happen in your life, but they'll come with a curse. And sometimes bad things might happen in your
Wow.
life and they'll come with a blessing. And he understood that life was not happening to him, but life was actually happening for him. Everything that happens in our lives, guys, you can look back at your life and say, I went through that divorce. I went through that homelessness. I went through that bad breakup. I lost that job. But thank God that happened when it did, because I would not be in the place that I am today, right? Life at that moment felt like it was happening to you, but now you can look back and say life actually happened for me. So if you can have a fail forward mindset even in the midst of your storm and say life isn't happening to me, life is happening for me, because I know down the line I'm going to look back and say Sai Wing Shima.
My goodness. Wow. Wow. What what a change that would make. I'm already piecing back, different seasons of my life and leadership where I'm like,
Yeah.
if I could grab hold of that. Because isn't it amazing though? I mean, I think most leaders understand that adversity and pain,
Yeah.
they can cause great growth, but boy, we hate to go
Mhm.
through it.
Yeah, no one likes adversity or pain, but well, if you never go through it, how will you even know how strong you can be and how much you can help someone else? Because a lot of the things that I've gone through in my life, I can look back and say, I'm glad I went through them so I can help someone else going through it. Because in the midst of it, you feel like your life is over. But if you can get through it, then you can let someone else know, hey, you're gonna get through this and you'll be better for it.
So much of what we talk about in the podcast, we look at as leaders. If leadership is influence, thanks to Dr. John Maxwell, we really
Yeah.
believe your communication ability, how you communicate, whether it's one on one to a team, from a stage, on a screen, however you communicate, actually grows your communication. I mean, it's how you
Yes.
steward your influence. So when we're going through a season of failure, okay, we've been attempting something at work, we went for a promotion and we didn't get it. Maybe we bombed the interview, maybe we bombed the proposal. How do we talk about it? How do we communicate about the failure? Do we bundle it up and keep it to ourselves? Do we share it with the world? Do we just talk about it with someone? Do we need a season before we can actually look back and learn from it? When do we get to that place, and how do we communicate and talk about that failure?
Two things. I always tell people make sure that you tell your story because you never know who might be using you as the survival guide for their life.
Oh,
Okay? That's number
yes.
one. Number two, when we share our failures, when we share when things happen to us and not for us, right? When we don't get that job, when you don't get the promotion, when your business fails, whatever it might be, you have to have a small circle. You have to have a few confidants. You have to have a few mentors. You have to have a few people that you trust, that you can share these things with, so that you don't harvest them internally, right? But a lot of times, what I do is I try my best to be as vulnerable as possible. Simon Sinek says this thing. He says, "Be as transparent as possible with the least amount of words." Now, when I think about that, be as transparent as possible with the least amount of words. You guys have seen me tell short stories about things that have happened in my life on LinkedIn, and they're usually line by line by line by line things. They're not long paragraphs, they're not big, elaborate. I'm not getting into the weeds, but I'm sharing enough information
Yep.
so that you can at least fill in the blanks
Yep.
and understand where I'm coming from. When you do that, you're giving someone the opportunity to understand, number one, they're not alone. They're not the only one that's gone through this, and that you are a human. Because
Yeah.
most people only share their successes, they'll only share their wins. They never talk about their losses. They never talk about when they didn't make the team. They never talk about when they didn't get the promotion or when they didn't get the job or when they lost their job. And
Yes.
I fully
Yep.
think that that is a piece of communication that human beings need to understand. Because we are social animals, we want to know that other people have gone through the same things we have.
Yep. Oh, and it's so important. And we're living in, FOMO world nowadays with,
Yeah.
everyone, we post our highlight reel and we're like,
Yep.
what gives, And
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm not immune to that. I've been speaking on stages for a long time, but I've
Yeah.
transitioned into the different rooms that I'm in, and I follow other speakers. And there's some days where I'm like, the Vanessa Van Edwards calls them the gremlins. Those negative voices in your head,
Yep.
and that moment where it pops in, where it's like, well, you're not on that stage, and you're like, nope, I gotta cut that right away. Be grateful they get to experience it, and believe I'm going to get to that place.
Yes, yes. It's very easy for you to get to that place where you're starting to get jealous of other people that you might think you are better than or whatnot. Everything is in seasons.
Right.
Everyone has their season. No one is on top of the game all the time every year, right? Even the goats of the goats of the goats went through their season. If you think about Michael Jordan, if you think about Tom Brady, if you think about Steph Curry, LeBron James, if you think about uh, any athlete, even Tiger Woods, right? Everyone goes through their season, and as long as you clap for those that are winning in their winning season, because you never know what they lost in their losing season, right?
Wow.
You never know. So you always want to be the one that's cheering those on as much as possible so that when it comes your time, you don't look like the greedy you know what that never cheered for anyone else.
Yep. Wow. 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 Sorry, I had to write that down. I'm taking furious notes. Clap for those in their winning season because you never know what they lost in their losing season. I mean, you think about it. I mean, you mentioned Tom Brady. I moved to Tampa just as Tom Brady was coming to the Buccaneers. And,
Nice.
it's funny. Like, someone asked him what's your favorite ring? And he always talked about the next one. But
The next one.
he still lost 3 Super Bowls and that fueled him. I mean, is
Yep.
I still can't talk
Yeah.
about Eli Manning, so we're going to stay away from that. But
We'll stay away from Eli.
yes, yes. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Earlier, you were talking about that small circle. How important it is. I was interviewing an amazing leader a couple weeks ago, Jonathan Lee Iverson. He was the last ringmaster for P.T. Barnum Bailey Circus, so the
Yeah.
Ringling Brothers Circus. He's the first African American ringmaster. He was in the Harlem Boys Choir. I mean, this man has like traveled the world. I mean, and he just dropped like wisdom after wisdom after wisdom. But he said a phrase that just made me think when you were talking, reminded me of it. But he's like, you got to find a mentor who has some scars, to mentor you.
Yes.
How important is it to have that person, that mentor in your life that can, who's kind of walked in those failure steps so then they can help guide you?
I always talk about diamonds. So in part of my keynote, I talk about the diamond process, how the diamond was buried. It underwent pressure, it underwent fire, it rose, and then it was extracted and cut. And I always tell people they have to look for the diamonds in their life, other
Oof.
people that can help cut them. Because diamonds being the hardest natural material on earth, the hardest natural material can only be cut by other diamonds. And I firmly believe that if there's something you want to do remarkable in this life, you have to get around other people that are diamonds that have gone through and done the things that you want to do, right? They might have had some of the same struggles as you. They might have had some of the same issues or upbringing as you. They might have the same family issues as you, but somehow they overcame it and they're shining like a diamond. And you want to know, how do I get there, right?
Yep.
And what can you see in me that you can pull out? That you can pull out, because most people believe that diamonds are cut to reflect light. At least that's what Kate Jewelers and Jared will tell you, right?
Right.
Diamonds are actually cut to show their inner beauty, right? And when you get around another diamond, they are going to help cut you so that your inner beauty, your inner light, your inner love can shine and show the brightest in the way that God intended you to be. And those are the type of people I want to get around, are other diamonds, other people that have gone through, that have been through, that have their wounds, that have their scars,
Yep.
that have a background of perseverance and hardship.
Wow. Wow. Whew, that's so powerful. So you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You've done a lot. What about those folks who are like, oof, when it comes to risk taking, just the thought of, oh, what if this doesn't go the right way? What if it fails? What would you say to those people who are so hesitant about the failure or the risk if they were, to move forward? Is this a baby step situation? Is it a jump in the deep end? How would you encourage them?
I will say this, and I tell people this all the time, and you know this as an entrepreneur. I've sat in many boardrooms, many ownership meetings, many company planning and meetings where people had to be laid off, where we were looking at first, second, third quarter revenue, when we were talking about cuts, and we were talking about bonuses, and all of the things, right? And one thing that I learned in those meetings is someone had to be an entrepreneur in order to create that business.
Mm,
And all of the issues that you run into as an entrepreneur running your own business, someone at the top of the company that you work for has the same issues. So at the end of the day, the risk, the security, all of those things are only in your mind because there
wow.
is risk in having a 9 to 5. There is insecurity in having a 9 to 5. There is a lack of knowing if you're going to have your job next week, tomorrow, next month. It might feel like security, but the only security that you truly have is in your faith. Okay.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I got to a point in my life where I had to say, I want to bet on myself and my God, and I want to allow my abilities and talents and my knowledge that I've learned over my 15, 16 years in corporate America to work for me. And I'm here to tell you, man, there is no such thing as security in a full-time job, because I have people reaching out to me on LinkedIn every day. They're saying, Jake, I just got laid off.
Oof.
What should I do? Which way should I go? How should I proceed? And it sucks because I know that they once felt that that job that they just got laid off
Right.
from was their money pot, their security, and
Yep.
the thing that was going to take care of their family, right? So my thing is to say this: we have one life to live. If there is a goal, if there's a passion, if there's a business you want to start, just start. Just start. Even if you have a full-time job, just start it. Do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do, until you're comfortable enough to leave and to run your own business. But your passion and your purpose is still going to be there no matter what. So you might as well jump into it. I waited way too long to do it myself. And if I could go back, I would have done it from the beginning.
So you had, I mean, let's go back to the beginning of your story for a second, because I was just thinking about this. There's so many business owners listening to this podcast, different people who've started something or a venture. I mean, you had a
Yeah.
pretty giant dream, like played college football, and then, your dream of the NFL. Realistically, how long did it take, till the death of that dream, or the reality? Okay, this is not the path that I'm going to end up going. Like, how long did it take before you freely could walk in the steps of, being released from that dream or that path?
Are you talking about football, or are you talking about
Football. Yes.
football? Yeah. So after I was cut from the NFL, I waited about a year until I worked out for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I actually went and worked out for a an arena football team down in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I realized too big for an arena football field. 50 yards is just not big enough. So I worked out for the Steelers, had a great workout. Things just didn't work out for me. So it was about a year and a half of me pushing and trying. And, my ex-wife and I had our first son at the time. My son just turned 17. He'll be 18 in February. And I had to get to a point where I had to say, you know what? This life now is no longer just about Jacob. I've got a child that I've got to take care of. So that dream started to fizzle out about a year and a half after I started down the path. So, and it was hard, and a lot of a fail forward mindset is understanding. If you look at my title on LinkedIn, my title is human being,
Mm,
because
yep.
once I lost football, I lost myself. I really didn't
Wow.
know who I was, right? I had no idea what my identity was, because I identified as a football player for so long, and when that was stripped away from me, I had to figure out, okay, who is Jacob Brown? What am I? Who am I? And what do I want the world to know about me? And that's when I had to go into the transition, and that transition took a while.
Yeah.
And I really feel like there are a lot of people that tie themselves so closely to their profession or their title that they forget who they are at their core.
Wow. 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 I love that. I mean, thank you for taking us into that, because I talk to leaders all the time who, the sting of the loss of dream, or
Yeah.
I mean, it just still, still haunts them. And so to get to a place where you can walk in freedom of going, hey, I did it. I gave it my best. It just,
Yes.
that wasn't the plan. And I moved forward with, this opportunity, and this is where I went. It's just
100%.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. So
I'm
in a
glad that I. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just thinking like how important that is, especially as you coach and mentor other people, because to be able to instill that mindset. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Because I fully think that there are a lot of people that are working jobs, that are starting professions, or former athletes, right? Or former law enforcement, former military, that they've so tied their lives and their identity in their value to those titles. And what I try to do is I try to get people to remove those titles from their name and really figure out and dig deep into who they truly are as a human being at the end of the day when
Wow.
they lay their head down on the pillow.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's amazing. Your identity's so tied to that title, and if it goes
Yeah.
away, your life can just go into absolute destruction. Let's turn a corner for a second. So in the corporate world, obviously you worked for a major company there in the Detroit area. How do you, like, even from your time in the corporate world, even now as you speak to different corporations, do you think corporations, companies allow their people to, dream big, to take some of those risks, to jump off the edge? Or, is the system per se holding people back from trying to attempt or, go after some more of those big giant dreams?
I think that there are some companies that do allow their employees, their leaders to dream big, to innovate, and to grow, whether inside or outside of the company. And I do believe that the companies that have the best cultures of cultivating those types of mentalities and thought processes are the best companies, not just to work for, but also to support, right? And there are a lot of companies out there that do provide a great culture for their employees, do provide a great streamlined avenue for them to grow, not just internally, but also externally. And that is where you get your best employees, your best people, and your best growth in the company.
Wow. Boy, that's so good. When it comes to uh, your kids, what steps have you taken to try to instill some of this in them? Because, I mean, goodness, parenting,
Yeah.
unbelievable responsibility. We're right there as we see kids, fail, and it's just wild. The more I study about these younger generations, Gen Z, and then Alpha, coming up after them, will be the largest population on the planet here come 3-4 years. They've grown up online. They get all the information in a split second. They don't have to wait for anything. You know, they don't have to take some of that time to process stuff and then ultimately to fail. How, as you as a parent, have you walked through helping your kids through failure, or kind of giving them some insight and encouragement, to help them kind of build that positive mindset?
One thing that I try to do with my kids, I try to be as open and honest with them as possible. They know about all of my failures that I at least have shared with them. They know and see my kids follow me, right? They follow me on
Yep.
LinkedIn, they follow me on Instagram. They see how open and transparent I am. But one thing I try to make sure that I'm doing is that I'm being the same father that they see online that I am at home, right?
So
I
good.
am consistent no matter where they see me, so it doesn't look like I'm putting on a front online when at home they see me as a total different person, right?
Wow.
So I
Yes.
try to show and set the example for my children that dad is who dad is, no matter where dad is, right? And one other thing that I do, even for my clients, for my customers, I always help them set goals. So we always pick a word of the year that each one of them are going to go after. A word of what is your word of the year? What are your goals of the year, and how can I help you achieve those goals, right? And they know what my word of the year is. They know what my goals of the year are. They understand what dad is trying to go after, and I try to be the example for them, right? And I also let them know, hey, when things don't work out, when you missed a game-winning shot, when you fail the test or whatever it might be, I'm going to be there supporting you the same as when you get the all A's on your report card or when you make the dunk in the game. I'm going to be consistent as possible so that they don't fear failure and they don't fear taking risks because they know that the outcome from dad at least is going to be the same.
Oof. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I always try to ask some of those parenting questions because so many of our listeners, yes, we're in the workplace, we're working, we're
Yeah.
building our businesses, doing that. But we don't want to miss out on our most important responsibilities and having some of that wisdom. So that was just incredible. I can't thank you enough for that. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, so as our time kind of comes to a close, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions. We're building this library of all of the best resources where Speak with People community can go and, be inspired, be encouraged, and find some
Hmm.
nuggets that maybe they haven't. So when it comes to speakers, is there a speaker who, oh my goodness, you just love, you recommend them every time you hear them, they just kill it. They fill your cup in a way that you never thought was possible?
I guess I could say two. I got to say Eric Thomas, here from Michigan, and also Mel Robbins. I absolutely love both. I love both of their messages. I love both of their stances, just in conviction of what they believe. So I've got to go with Eric Thomas and Mel.
I didn't realize Eric was a Michigander. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I missed that
Yep.
somehow.
Yeah.
Is there a podcast that, either guilty pleasure or development that it just fills you up, you would highly recommend to another leader?
I got to go with the Mel Robbins podcast. That's probably my favorite one, the one that I listen to, and also Simon Sinek's. I always listen to his as well.
I just wish Mel was more real.
I know, man. It just doesn't seem like she's authentic enough. No, she's great.
Talk about being vulnerable I just listened to one of her podcasts where it talked about her and her husband. They lost $800,000, in their business, and, recovering from that and moving forward. I was like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's something.
Yeah.
And then is there a book you would say, yes, every leader, you got to read this?
Every leader needs to read Start with Why, Simon Sinek.
Oh yeah.
I fully believe that any leader, any owner, any business owner needs to understand what their why is, and to make sure that they're always pointing back to that, instead of just a product. I think more so people need to understand, and that goes for us, even us as speakers, right? Us as speakers, we have to understand why we do what we do. Truly,
Yes.
why do you get out of bed every day and do what you do? Why do you believe the messages that you do? Because that is what's more important than what you do.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. This time has been so incredibly valuable. I mean, inspirational, a challenge. I mean, you've just dropped so much great wisdom. Where is the best place our community, our listeners can find you online?
Yeah, I think the best place right now is LinkedIn. You can find me, Jacob Brown, on LinkedIn. I shouldn't be too hard to find. You can also find me on my website, which is failforwardbrown.com, failforwardbrown.com. And I'm on pretty much all social medias, but those are probably the two platforms that I'm most.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll post those in the show notes. And we'll also, when this episode airs, we'll link it in our Speak with People community group, because we have this great group of, I don't know, of 1,000+ leaders from around the world who are all trying to lean forward and improve their communication skills so they can keep growing as a leader. Jacob, this has really been an honor. Like, I've been looking forward to this for a long time, and I really appreciate you pouring out your wisdom, giving your time to our community. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jason. And I'm looking forward to further collaboration, communication with you as well. So thank you. Great podcast. Looking forward to hearing it.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Speak with People podcast. We hope that you were encouraged. We hope that you were inspired and challenged to improve your communication skills. I want to thank you again for being a part of the Speak with People podcast community. Make sure you don't miss out on being a part of the Speak with People Facebook community group. Just head to Facebook, type in Speak with People, scroll down, and join our community, because every single day we're encouraging each other, we're helping each other to improve our communication skills. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.